Welcome in episode number 71 of the St0ner Sports Radio podcast. We are going over everything Big 12 related, so we are covering the bottom half of the alphabet here for the Big 12 conference. We got the top half figured out last episode, and now we're here to give you the rest of it. Once again, joining me as usual is friend and co-host Zach Huffman. Zach, how are we doing on this Sunday?
Yeah, we're doing good. 24 hours from now, almost exactly, we're going to be locked in on CFB 25.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're going to be locked in, baby. We're going to be locked in. Yeah, so that's happening. Yeah, we are dangerously close. Dangerously close.
And star rebuilds on the way.
Oh, you know it. You know it. Here we go. We ended up with Colorado being the last team we covered before we got out of here. Let's start with the Houston Cougars. CBS has them at 3.5 wins. They're only giving them 2, so they're taking the under 3.5 here. I was looking at the sports books. One had them at 3.5, or two had them at 3.5, and three of them had them at 4 as the number of wins for the Cougars. What's your thoughts on Willie Fritz and his first year down there in Houston?
They're going to be bad. They're going to be real bad. I think I just agree with CBS here. They're probably getting 2 wins, and that being at UNLV and Rice, who are equally as bad. I could see them even losing to Rice. I could see this being a 1-win team, just beating UNLV. Upset territory, probably BYU. Maybe.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, maybe.
I mean, I think if you were going to try to find wins 3 and 4, those would be the possible candidates. That's for sure. I don't think there is a lot of hope as far as kind of where this Houston team is. You talk about Willie Fritz and kind of what he's done in the first couple of years of his past projects, and you know, Tulane went 1-7 back in 2016 when he first started. So inheriting a bad roster doesn't really bode well for him, but he can build programs into good programs. It just takes time, and this being year 1, I'm kind of with you. This could be 2 wins, but I think it's 2 wins. I don't think they beat anybody else.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. I might go 1 win, honestly. I might take Rice.
Yeah, I mean, pick the under. I mean, the under 3.5. If you have 4 as the line, slam the shit out of that. As I said, 3 out of the 5 books I'm looking at have 4 as the number. If it's 4, I mean, either they know something, which is they believe in Willie Fritz and his ability to, you know, coach up talent. But I mean, Donovan Smith is okay, right? Like we both agree he's not a terrible quarterback. I wouldn't hate to have him as an option. I just think around him he's got nobody, and that defense is atrocious. And so that one person is not going to carry you to many wins. So yeah, slam the under for sure. Iowa State next, Zach. Over under 7.5 here on CBS. I have yet to find them here on the list over here at the sports books, but I believe that is around where most places have them. Yes, they're all at 7.5 as well, so no differentiation there. North Dakota, Arkansas State, Houston, Baylor, UCF, Texas Tech, Kansas, Cincinnati, and Kansas State they have as the wins. They have 3 losses here for Iowa State, Iowa, West Virginia, and Utah. So that puts them at over 7.5 here on CBS. What are your thoughts here on the Cyclones? Because a lot of people love Rocco Becht and what he's going to be providing as far as quarterback talent, but what about the rest of them?
You know, I've always trusted Iowa State because of Matt Campbell, and I really do believe in him as a coach. But I don't see them beating Kansas. I don't see them beating Kansas State. I could see them beating West Virginia. I could see them beating Iowa. So I think this is probably a 9-win team. I'm looking at 9, maybe 10, but probably leaning towards 9. But I don't think they have even a chance at beating Kansas or Kansas State this season.
Yeah, I think this list got it wrong there. I think I kind of agree with you there. I think Kansas and Kansas State should be losses, and the wins should be probably at Iowa and at West Virginia. I know Iowa seems to just kind of beat them every year, Zach. I don't know how they do it. Even with Brock Purdy and company, Iowa still got the job done those years as well. Um, I mean, this could be the year Iowa State gets their W. They're definitely set up to do so. But for sure, this is an 8-win team, right?
I think at least 8. I think at the very minimum, you're going 8. I don't know, maybe 7. I think 7 is probably the floor.
Yeah, I mean, seven's definitely the floor, but at a 7.5 line, I'm taking the over for sure.
Yeah, I believe so. I'd take the over, probably leaning 8 or 9, maybe 10.
Yeah, I think it's got to be that. I, they, I mean, CBS has them possibly being in the conference championship game for the Big 12. I just don't see that for the Cyclones this season.
Yep, I have to agree with that.
Well, that puts those two to bed. But now comes one of the heavy hitters here, Kansas, with the over/under of 8 as the win total here on CBS, where we're looking at right now. The Jayhawks definitely have a good quarterback. There's no doubt about that. The defense, again, is kind of in the middle. I wouldn't say it's awful, but it's not going to make you turn your head and go, oh, this is really good. What are your thoughts on the Jayhawks heading into the season?
I'm big. I'm big on the Jayhawks. Daniels is obviously amazing, Heisman contender in my opinion. Um, this team could go 11-1. This team could go 12-0. They have an easier schedule than most.
Yeah, I mean, and two books even have them at 8.5 wins. So if you can get it at 8, over 8 is probably the move here. Um, CBS has them at what, 10-2? It looks like here. Is that what I'm looking at?
Ten and
Um,
two with a loss to Iowa State. I don't see that. A loss to Kansas State, probably, maybe. I'm looking at 11-1.
yeah, I mean their schedule pans out pretty good. Wins against Lindenwood, Illinois on the road, UNLV at home, on the road in Morgantown at West Virginia, TCU at home, on the road against Arizona State, Houston at home, at BYU, Colorado at home, and at Baylor. Um, I, losses like you said, Kansas State, Iowa State. I like we agreed. I don't think Iowa State's beating Kansas unless the injuries kind of line themselves up perfectly, and Kansas is able to fall uh, at home to the Cyclones. I just don't see that happening. Do any of these wins here look like they could become losses here for Kansas? Because I'm specifically looking at um,
Morgantown.
yeah, I'm looking at West Virginia on the road, and I'm also looking at Baylor because we know that we said this before. Baylor is not a bad team, and they're going to give you a good fight. And Dave Aranda is going to bring the wood with that defense. I mean, that could be one of those trap games, in my opinion.
It could be. I can see them losing to Baylor, but even still, you're looking at a 10-2 team.
Over 8. I mean,
Over 8.
eight's a very soft line for this Kansas team. I think that what they're kind of worried about is Jaden Daniels and his health, right? Because if he's not healthy, then their backup is not going to be good enough to carry this Kansas team where it could go. And that's what happened last season, and they're just hoping that it's not going to this season. Um, and I mean, back injuries are scary, Zach. I mean, they're not something that you just kind of, heal up very quickly. This is a long injury that requires a lot of rehab. So it could be aggravated quite easily with one good hit. So you better hope that offensive line can protect him if you're a Kansas fan.
Yeah, 100%. But I think that they can get the job done. And honestly, this is going to be my first pick because we haven't got to the other one yet. My first pick to be in the Big 12 championship.
I like it. I like it.
11-1
It's a
is
fun
my
pick.
is my pick.
It's a fun pick. All right, over 8. We're both slamming the over there. We think that's kind of free money. If he stays healthy, that's free money, folks. Um, and that leads us to their rival Kansas State. 9.5 is the line for the Wildcats. A lot of people buying in to Kansas State, which I'm not particularly surprised. A couple places have them at 9. 3 out of the 5 I'm looking at have them at 9. Right now, you're looking at 10-2 here on CBS with wins against UTM, uh, Tulane on the road, Arizona at home, on the road against BYU, Oklahoma State at home, on the road in Boulder at Colorado, Kansas at home, at Houston, and Arizona State at home, and Cincinnati at home as well. They have them losing to Iowa State and West Virginia. I don't know if I really agree with these picks here.
No, I don't agree with them at all. In fact, I agree with losing to West Virginia. I think Kansas State will lose at Morgantown. I don't think they're going to lose to Iowa State. However, I don't think that they're going to beat Oklahoma State. I have this as a 10. I have this as a 10-2 team losing to West Virginia and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean 10-2. It's the over 9.5 here. If you can get it at 9, you'd feel a little bit better about that. Um, I mean, Tulane on the road is gonna be tough. Um, that's not a slouch team. We know Boulder is a tough place to play, but the offensive line for Colorado is so bad. I just don't think they've got a prayer of a chance of generating any offense. And like you said, West Virginia is also a tough thing. Um, I mean, yeah, I think 10-2 is probably the ceiling here. I would say 9 at least. I think they could drop uh they could drop Tulane, and I think they could drop Iowa State if they're not careful. I just think that it comes down to how good is Avery Johnson, right? How good is this
Mm-hmm.
guy that backed up Will Howard last year when he got hurt, came in, looked pretty good. But you know how it is, Zach. Once you got film on a guy, things can change pretty quickly, and it's going to be whether or not Avery Johnson can continue to be as dynamic as he was as a dual threat when it comes to Kansas State's success this season.
Yeah, I mean, and they're going to have a really good running game this year too. So I have them beating most teams, but once again, I don't see them beating Oklahoma State, who is next on the list. And that's my next pick. That's actually my pick to win the Big 12 here is Oklahoma State.
Yeah, as we move on to the pokes here, the over under here is set at 8. A lot of people think that's kind of low for Oklahoma State, but let's just play devil's advocate here, Zach. They have been disappointing rather than meeting expectations the last couple seasons. Is this the year that Mike Gundy and company really take a hold here without OU or Texas breathing down their neck? Or is this going to be another situation where we're talking about this Oklahoma State team, which only one sportsbook has them at 8.5? A lot of people think 8's the ceiling here. What are your thoughts?
This is a 12-0 team. I have them beating everybody on their schedule. I don't see a loss. I think they beat Kansas State like we said earlier. I think they beat Baylor like we said earlier and Colorado like we said earlier. I don't have a loss for this team. I don't see a single team on this schedule that I think is better than Oklahoma State.
I mean, there are some games on here, right? You're lucky that you have Utah at home, right? You think that's probably going to play the difference there because that's not going to be easy. Um, South Dakota State as a season opener is scary, in my opinion, because of just what they are in the FCS. They're one of the top teams. I mean, they're North Dakota State from 3 years ago. Good. I mean, they are good. And we saw how they played against South Alabama last year. Obviously, the rotating quarterbacks thing was going on, and we kind of credit that for those losses because how can you find a rhythm when you have three guys taking like 8 snaps apiece? You just can't. But now Alan Bowman's the guy, right? He's rocking that sweet mustache. He's given Raleigh fingers. He's given Pistol Pete with that red mustache. Uh, 12-0 is would be a really big deal, and I think they have the potential to do that. But I also see them being 10-2. They could be 10-2. Kansas State and Utah could get them. I think those are the two
Yep.
teams you got to watch
Utah
out
could get
for.
them.
But this is definitely better than an 8-win team. This is not an 8-win team. CBS has them at 9-3. I think this is 10-2 at worst. 10-2 at worst because your schedule is that favorable.
There's such an easy schedule. They should coast into the Big 12 game against who I think is going to be Kansas. Um, I don't see any reason Oklahoma State's not in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean this should be a playoff team, and it kind of hinges also on the running game, right? If Ollie Gordon's not healthy, that's gonna hurt them. I don't know who they've got behind him that can, nobody's him, but I mean, like, is there someone behind him on that roster that if something happens, they don't have no running game? You know what I'm saying? Is there somebody that can make a guy miss in the backfield? Because that's kind of what Ollie's specialty was last season. I don't think Oklahoma State's offensive line gelled the way they're gelling right now, and I think that's the advantage. Is Alan Bowman's going to be protected better. They're going to have bigger holes for Ollie, and that's where you get that offense. And defensively, Nick Martin's a beast. And I mean, this is a team that defensively has improved year after year the last 10 seasons.
Yeah, 100%. And here's the thing, you don't have a suspension coming for Ollie Gordon after, him and Mike Gundy took a little joyride. But so luckily, you're going to get Ollie Gordon hopefully the whole season. I don't think, hopefully he doesn't get injured. That'd be terrible. Best player in college football, Ollie Gordon?
Could be. He's in the discussion for sure. I mean, Dylan Gabriel's pretty damn good. At least he's got the tools to be pretty damn good as far as stat padding and leading to a bunch of victories. But the thing is we know how running backs in the Heisman can do if they're special. And I think Ollie Gordon has the ability to be special. And we've seen it in the past with a bunch of those Alabama running backs that have been able to take that trophy. I think he has the potential to look as good as them as far as, impressively long runs, being able to run through contact, because this isn't the SEC. And I think that's to his benefit.
Yeah, that's 100%. So now move on to TCU.
The Horned Toads, baby. The Horned Toads. CBS has them at 7.5. 7.5 is the line for the Horned Frogs that they've got on here. And that's what I see across the land in the realm of the sports books as well. They've got them at under 7.5 here. They've got them at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 5. So on the lesser end of the 7.5 here. What are your thoughts on TCU here? They're kind of an enigma.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, this is a team that, went to the national championship 2 years ago. It's so tough because then they sucked last year. It's so tough to gauge this team. Their schedule is not terrible. They're definitely losing all those games that CBS has them losing. The question, I think, is, do they lose to Central Florida?
I like Central Florida. I think that's a win for the Golden Knights, to be honest. And to be honest, I like Texas Tech too.
Wow, you like Tech and Central Florida. So you have this team going 5?
5 and 7.
I think I have them going 6. I think they beat Texas Tech.
If they don't beat Texas Tech, they beat SMU. That's how I feel about this team. Because that SMU game is early on in the season. You can maybe catch them slipping. And plus, that's an in-state battle. You know that place is going to be rowdy as fuck. And that's the same thing with Texas Tech. That's technically a rivalry game, in my opinion. I think anything can happen in those two games. And I like UCF to beat them. I really like UCF as one of my dark horses to slip into the Big 12 title. I like UCF and Oklahoma State as my two teams. I know that's kind of jumping the gun there, but I think UCF is definitely built to go places.
Wow, bold. First year in a Power 5 conference. Power 4. Oh, yeah, second year. Yeah. Second year in a Power 4, you think they're getting there?
I think KJ Jefferson's the difference. We'll talk about them more when we get there. But as far as
we've already done them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, that's right, because they would see. So yeah, I like KJ Jefferson. That's the difference for me. And I think that I think that you could 6 and 6 is probably where they're at. I just don't know.
I'm at 6 and 6.
I just don't know where which ones are the 6 and 6. But I think they go 500, and I think the under is the correct move here.
Yeah, I'm taking the under. I'm going 6 and 6 with Central Florida beating them.
Yeah, I mean, we can agree to disagree, but we're technically on the same level as far as record wise. Texas Tech next on the list. Speaking of a team that I'm kind of a little bit more leaning towards a positive spin than a negative spin. They've got them at 7.5 on CBS, and that's kind of the consensus throughout the land as well. Um, what are your thoughts on Texas Tech? Do you think this? I mean, CBS has them as an under here at 7-5. What do you think about that?
I mean, they have a cupcake schedule, first of all. So, I mean, they're going to win at least six, I feel like. Um, maybe five. I don't think they beat Baylor or Colorado. And I'm thinking they're probably losing to Arizona. Maybe not. Arizona's a
Arizona's not
tough
going to
one.
be bad, so I think that's a loss.
Probably lost to TCU. You don't think so, but I think they
Yeah,
lose to TCU. I think they lose to Iowa State. They definitely lose to Oklahoma State. They definitely lose to West Virginia. So, yeah, probably 5-7 for me.
5-7. Yeah, I'm kind of on the other end of this. I think you look at Abilene Christian, that's a win. Washington State's a win. North Texas a win. Arizona State a win. Cincinnati a win. Um, Baylor, that's kind of where I'm kind of like, you know. I think you could swap TCU and Baylor. Colorado probably a loss also. Um, 6-6. I think this is a 6-6 team. I think this is a middle of the road, really sneaking into a bowl game kind of team.
Yep. That's just kind of what the bottom of the Big 12 looks like, too. And just a bunch of these. You have your really ugly teams. You have your Houstons, but Big 12 just got a heavy top, I feel like.
Yeah, they really do. Um, and you're seeing our feelings demonstrated by just kind of where this is headed. And the next team is kind of at the top, right? This is Utah. 9.5 is the number they've got. CBS has them going 11-1. I mean, obviously Cameron Rising is kind of the thing, right? I mean, that's kind of where people are kind of hanging their hat as far as how good Utah is. And the schedule is pretty easy. You look at the schedule, and the only games that kind of stand out to me that they have in the win category that could go the other way is Arizona at home and maybe on the road against UCF. Those are kind of the two because Orlando's not easy to go down and win into, and you know that place is going to be packed for that game. They have them losing to Oklahoma State. I think this is a 10-2 team at worst. I think their schedule is super cake.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Their schedule is super cupcake, and like definitely losing to Oklahoma State, maybe losing to UCF, maybe losing to Colorado. This team, I think, its floor is probably 9 wins. The
Yes.
question is, I probably have them going 11-1, but the question is how they get in. Do they get into the Big 12 championship with that based on their strength of schedule?
No, I don't. If you lose the head-to-head to Oklahoma State, I think you're toast, right? I mean, they wouldn't want. I mean, it could be a rematch. It could be, but I
But
mean,
if your only loss is to the 12-0, let's assume that Oklahoma State's
okay.
12-0. If your only loss is to the 12-0 Oklahoma State, then you probably get your rematch, right?
Yeah, I
Because
mean, unless
assuming
yeah, yeah,
based on what I think, assuming Kansas
yeah,
is
exactly. Yeah,
11-1 and they're with them, then they would have lost to Kansas State, and that's a worse loss than Oklahoma State at that point. So, I mean,
yeah. I think. I mean,
maybe I do have Utah instead of Kansas.
yeah. I mean, you would have a good argument. Um, but I'm kind of with you. I don't think 11-1 is kind of where I think you're definitely getting 10 wins here. I just think you drop another one. One of these is a loss. Arizona's the one I'm circling. I know it's a home game for Utah, but defeat is no joke. I think people are really kind of sleeping on how good that offense of Arizona is going to be. It's whether or not that defense can stop a nosebleed.
Looking at it, I think I might be circling Colorado.
End of the year, I mean, if Colorado has something to play for, that's what's going to matter, right?
They could surprise some teams. I don't think they're going to be great. I mean, I think I had them going 4-8, but like,
I think
if
I had.
any team is going to possibly be good, it's them.
Yeah, again, that offensive line is a question, and according to via his own mouth, Shadir Sanders says those boys cannot block.
Mm,
Um, I don't know if you saw that video I sent you, but
I did.
yeah, he said they can't block. So that's he'll be running for his life again this season, is what it sounds like. And that leads us to the bookend here, West Virginia, and me and you both are probably higher on West Virginia than most. They've got the line at 6.5 here. Um, I believe that line has moved up. CBS does have them winning more than 6.5. They are picking the over. I'm looking here real quick. I think that it has moved from that over 6.5 to 7. I think is what I saw. Um, I don't see it. Why don't I see it? Where are you? Where are you, country roads? Where are you, West Virginia? Where are you, man? There they are. Yeah, a couple of them have them at 3 out of the 5 have them at 7. And CBS has them going. It looks like 8-4. Um, I kind of like 8-4.
Um, yeah, I like 8-4. Switch Penn State with Kansas State for me. It's perfect.
Yeah, I I will agree with that, and I would yeah
So we're picking over 6.5.
yeah over 6.5 for sure. I think this is a minimum 7. I mean, seven wins at the least. I think that they have a very good home field advantage. I think that Garrett Green is a serious playmaker. I think the man has skills. So I'm not surprised at all that CBS picking the over with 8 wins, and I would say that's probably where you're at. And like you said, Penn State, Kansas State, flip them. I think that's a perfect schedule with wins against Albany, Pittsburgh, Iowa State, Kansas State, Cincinnati, UCF, Texas Tech. Um, and yeah, switch them. Switch the Penn State, and you lost. You lose Kansas at home, on the road against Oklahoma State, and on the road against Arizona and Tucson. I like it.
Mhm. Yep, I think they have a decent schedule too. So if they're able to pull off some upsets, I can see them, sneaking into the playoff as a Big 12 third team.
Yeah, they if they can beat Penn State and they can beat Arizona on the road, that's probably the big one. I think Kansas State and Oklahoma State are definitely losses. I don't think you can avoid that. Kansas, it'll depend on where they're headed, as far as kind of where their season leads them. Uh, but that's also a home game for West Virginia, so that's not going to be a cakewalk for the Jayhawks. They could surprise some people. Give me your thoughts as we wrap up the Big 12, kind of where you see this conference as a whole, and again, give us your 2 picks for the conference championship game. Who do you think's gonna leave it with a victory?
Yeah, so the Big 12 as a whole is kind of mid. Um, they're probably the third best conference. I don't know if they're better than the ACC or not. I would probably say so at this point. They probably are. So Big 12 probably here to stay at least until we get the 2 mega conferences that everybody knows we're heading towards. Um, I'm going to have to go with Utah and Oklahoma State, the Big 12 championship. I thought Kansas at first, but after taking a look at Utah's schedule, I think they're just going to have better losses than Kansas in that 11-1 matchup. So I'm probably going to go with Oklahoma State, Utah, and the Big 12 championship. Gonna say Oklahoma State wins Big 12 and gets a bye through the first round of the playoff.
I like it. I kind of have the same thoughts about the Big 12. I think it's very top heavy. I think you've got 4 or 5 teams out of the 16 that could do some damage. As far as possibly sneaking their way into the title game, and if not just outright winning the conference championship altogether. I like Oklahoma State as well to make it in the conference championship game. But I like Central Florida. I do like the Golden Knights to become one of those teams that nobody wants to play. I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. And I think that they've got the makeup to do something that people don't think they're going to do. And do I think they're going to beat Oklahoma State? No. I think that Oklahoma State's just built to win their conference this year. I think they're the best team overall, offense and defense. And I think Utah's a close second talent-wise. I just think that they're going to have 2 losses or possibly even 3 that we don't even think is going to happen. I think that this could be one of those things where if Utah loses not only to Oklahoma State, but maybe even loses on the road to UCF, which would help them immensely in my scenario, and possibly losing at home against Arizona. I think those are 2 other games that I would circle on Utah's calendar that could help UCF out when it comes to what I think is going to happen here. But overall, it should be a really fun conference to watch. I think that the games on a week-to-week basis, so you're going to have a lot that you're going to want to tune into because they're going to be close. The games may not be against teams that are really, really good, but I think you're looking at a lot of photo finishes in this conference as far as matchups go.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I think you're looking at a photo finish for the end result too, in terms of picking who the conference title contenders are going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be a race to the end. So strap in, Big 12 fans. You're in for a treat. Anything else you want to know before we get out of here?
No. I think Gundy's the best coach in the Big 12.
All right, there you have it. Best coach in the Big 12. Definitely the best coach in Oklahoma State history. For Zach and I here at the 0ner Sports Podcast Studios, keep sticking on the ice. We'll see you in the next one.